School Bus Safety Week might be over for the year, but it's still top of mind year-round for all of us in the student transportation industry. So let's dig into what the biggest safety issues and solutions are. But first, let me thank our sponsor of the route, IC Bus. The next generation is here and is ahead of its class. Let's get rolling. Today, we're taking a look at all things school bus safety related, from technologies and enforcement that are making a real difference. In just a moment, I'm going to bring in the president of SafeFleet, just one of many companies offering innovative solutions for school bus use that makes every trip safer for our nation's students. SafeFleet uses its illegal passing suite made up of multiple solutions to make the bus rides safer, from better lighting to alerts for both the bus driver, students, and other road users about potential dangers ahead. Its development in connection with law enforcement is what really caught my eye. So let's hear from the man behind it all to learn more. So I am joined today by Mike Hagan, president of SafeFleet. Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the route today.
Thanks, Amanda. We're really excited to be here today.
Awesome. Well, I was really excited to do this interview after chatting with some of your other team members for our illegal passing feature in our September safety issue. I was just so impressed by everything that your company offers to make school buses safer on the road. So we're going to talk all about that in just a moment. Before we get too deep into those weeds, though, give us an overview. Who is SafeFleet? What's your background? And what do you bring to the table for the industry?
Yeah. So, SafeFleet is a safety products company. We really focus on how to make fleets safer and more productive or efficient for all of our customers. We've been in the industry, some of our brands, for over 100 plus years. And in the school bus industry, we've been a partner for 50 plus years. And so everything from stop arms and cross arms to roof hatches and now video and technology solutions that allow us to make buses safer and more secure. And then we've really been able to, work with our partners across verticals, whether it's law enforcement or transit, to bring other technologies in to help make student transportation safer.
Okay, perfect. So let's dig into the issue of illegal passing more. I think it's probably widely accepted that is one of the top, if not the biggest safety issue for the industry right now. It's been called an epidemic, actually, of people illegally passing the bus. So from your perspective and your experience there at SafeFleet, how big of a problem is it? Do you have any statistics? I know we have those NASDAPs and NHTSA stats, but compared to years ago, how has this problem evolved?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really been, I would say the word is persistent. The factors have changed over time, but as far back as I can remember, and I've been in this space for 18 years now, it's 39, or so million illegal passes per day. And what we've seen is, a lot of effort from the industry, in terms of education and training and signage and lighting, all aimed at how to improve safety, around the vehicle, which today, fortunately, student transportation is one of the safest modes of transportation. But most of the accidents happen around the vehicle. And so that crossing can be super dangerous. And so we've really, really have been trying to focus on, how to improve that. But what we've seen is, as we've introduced video, is just more and more evidence of, how shocking, how scary that can be to see those near misses or occasionally an actual accident. And so whether we're talking with school districts, transportation directors, all are pretty much expressing that no matter what we seem to do, things change over time and we still face this problem. And today, I think we all know everybody has, smartphones, portable music, headsets. And so a lot of distraction, whether it's the drivers, the students themselves. And so that's really, I think, shaped things over the last, 5 to 7 years, where we've seen more and more of that. I don't know how many drivers I see every morning texting while driving. Um, and then, also students, crossing, looking at their phones. Sometimes it's the younger kids that are actually, excited, to either get on the bus or head home. And so it's really a scary situation. And again, the video for us has really made things, seeing is believing. And, at first it really scares you, and then you really look at the problem, and then, that frustration and anger sets in. And so we've always looked at, how do we do more? What can we do? And for us, that's really been an evolution, over, our span and our different products. How do we evolve them? How do we make things more visible? How do we better alert the driving public?
Right. Well, and you mentioned distracted driving and I guess distracted walking for some of the
Yeah,
students, but there's such an intersection there between those two issues because if you're not fully focused on the road, you're probably not going to see that bus soon enough to
that's right.
stop. And so these issues are just so interconnected, and it's another, I guess, industry problem that we're trying to figure out. But there's a range of solutions available. No one is the silver bullet. It's kind of a combination of all of these working together. I think. But let's walk through what products are out there to help combat the problem and what specifically does Safely offer. I know you have a whole suite, so tell us about it.
Yeah. Yeah, we've called it our illegal passing suite, but it really is a comprehensive approach, to the problem. How do we increase visibility and warn the driving public? How do we introduce, warnings or alerts for the school bus driver and students? And then how do we detect now automatically, these violations so that, we can actually, issue tickets and try to deter, through that. So it's really a multi-pronged approach. And then, at the school district and the transportation director level, there's still a lot of, work also being done just around, driver training, community education, student education. So we see really all of that working together. But as our approach, it's been as simple as, stop arms that have been around for a really long time. They've been very effective. But over that same time, we've increased the amount of lighting, the way we illuminate the stop arm. Today, that's actually illumination of the letters STOP. We've added reflectivity, even things like crossing arms that you may not think are aimed at improving the crossing. It's really trying to protect the students from the school bus, but it also gives them a better vantage point of the roadway so that they can make better decisions. And then with the addition of video technology, which we've had in place, for 30 plus years in school bus, we've actually been able to do manual, detection and capture of, illegal passing, which has been helpful. And in some cases, it's allowed us, to implement programs that, at least allow warnings, if not tickets. But, all of that for us, the ticketing part, just never felt right. It was how do we warn? How do we prevent the problem? And so we started, several years back with what other technologies are out there to warn students about, a dangerous situation. So we, with our stop arm as it deploys, we actually built a system that, has radar looking both directions down the road, to see if vehicles are passing and on an approach that maybe, would indicate they're not going to stop. And so with that, we're able to actually warn the school bus driver so that, if the student's still in the vehicle, to keep them in or to be able to communicate to them verbally. And then we've also added an audible warning, basically a speaker outside the vehicle that alerts the student, to not pass, to basically pay attention. So that's been a very powerful, technology. We've seen videos now where, the student is crossing, they do hear the warning and they do look up, they stop. And in many cases, time, milliseconds actually can make a huge difference. We've actually seen it where, the student looks up, pauses, and the car actually knocks the phone out of the, student's hand in that particular case. But very near misses, which are still scary, but you've prevented an accident. And so, we see that as being a really key, part to the problem. So
So that's the predictive stop arm that you're talking
that
about,
is, yes.
right? Okay. And then you also have the driver alert. Now, describe how those work. Those are really nifty.
We do, yeah. So that was kind of going back to, how do we alert the driving public? How do we, again, it's amazing to me the number of times you talk to someone and they're like, oh, I didn't know what to do, or I didn't realize the school bus was stopped. And so we've really taken, every possible approach working with the school bus manufacturers. They have all the different amber and red lights working. Our stop arms deploy. Often we have more than one stop arm, depending on the state or the area. And then we've added signage at the back of the bus that actually flashes and tells the public what to do when the bus is actually stopped. So,
yeah, it was a caution, stop ahead, I think
yeah,
it says.
yeah, caution, yeah, caution stopping. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So I'd really like to know more about the development of these products, because I think, what I learned in the other interview is that you work directly with law enforcement to utilize some of their expertise. And I think you have some former law enforcement folks on your team too who helps, create these products. Is that right? How did that come together?
Yeah, that's right. So we've actually, as we've grown as Safe Fleet, we've brought other companies, other technologies into our portfolio. And so we actually have a team that's been in the law enforcement video space and providing, video technology for almost 40 years now. And so what became, or came from simple, dash cameras has evolved into license plate reading, as well as body worn cameras. But that license plate reading technology is really key. It's been around for a really long time, but as technology's improved over time, we've really seen, the in-vehicle compute or capability to make those kinds of technologies available in vehicle real time. And so we first deployed that in law enforcement to help alert officers and improve officer safety when they pull up to a vehicle and let them the camera does the detection for them automatically, and then runs that license plate against a hot list to let them know, hey, is this a person of interest or someone that they need to take special care with or potentially call for help. We adapted that technology for school buses. We already know we've got our video systems on the vehicle. We know when the vehicle stopped with our stop arms. And so basically we've added, extra, high resolution cameras outside the vehicle to not only detect is a vehicle passing after the vehicle stopped and the stop arms are deployed, but we can also automatically read that license plate. Nobody has to do anything anymore. There's no pushing buttons. There's no having to try to write down plates or go back and play back video. The system does it automatically, which we found to be one of the biggest barriers to how do you, increase enforcement of the law.
Sort of anecdotally too, I've heard that, some skeptics say, well, what use is the video when the footage is so blurry and, we can't even find the license plate properly. But, I think those are probably older models those folks might be thinking of, and it's just so vastly improved now, right? How
they are, as I mentioned, for 10, 15 years, we've had different, as the camera technology's improved, we've gone from standard definition to high definition to now 4K cameras. That's allowed to get that superior footage and to be able to present evidence that's very clear, that there's no room for mistake there.
So there's all these solutions, and you offered 3 alone, but are there any that you see as most effective or most widely adopted, or was kind of the reception to?
Yeah, it's an interesting question and something we've worked on for a while, obviously around the signage and lighting. But I still will say today, when you introduce, whether it's new lighting, new signage, new light patterns, that is still we find to be the most kind of eye-catching, and we see the most significant decreases when we do those kinds of tests or pilots with those new methods. For example, our illuminated stop arm, when we deploy that and do those tests in the field with our customers, we actually see, anywhere from a 55 to 65% reduction, in some cases up to 70% on the routes where those are introduced. And I think it's because it's something new. It catches the eye. And I still, it always again amazes me that people are like, well, I didn't realize that was a school bus, or I didn't realize it was stopped. And so I think we have to, constantly be inventing new ways to draw attention, without full distraction that, hey, look, this is the vehicle stopped and here's what you need to do. We still see that as the number one way to really drive down illegal passing. Interestingly enough, whether it's stop arm enforcement, we also have bus lane for transit buses where we actually enforce keeping, the bus lanes need to be kept clear. It's illegal to be in them for, an extended period of time. All of those cases, when we introduce the violation detection and ticketing, we do see reductions, but only like 20 and 30%. And so it's helpful, but we don't see it as solving the problem, which gets us back to why you have to have a, multi-pronged or faceted approach. With dash cams and body worn cameras, you're capturing evidence. And so you have to, capture that in a reliable way. So in the vehicle, you have to capture it, store it, transfer it out of off the vehicle, and then make that easy to share, easy for reporting, easy for analysis. And so we've built actually a cloud platform that does that. That's CJIS compliant. It's the Criminal Justice Information System compliant with end-to-end encryption. But the important piece out of that is we've brought all of that data, whether it's just the video or things like, how fast was the vehicle moving, the location of the vehicle. We bundle all of that together and create an evidence package that can be used in a court of law. And so we've taken that same technology and married that with the license plate reading. And again, everything we see when a vehicle illegally passes a school bus, we can bundle that and share that in real time back to our back office with our law enforcement partners and ticketing partners that ultimately ends in a citation. And that license plate reading capability is, over 98% accurate. And the evidence packages in terms of, in the past, you would see, 50, 60% rates. And now we see in excess of 90% accuracy on the actual observation itself, which reduces time. So the time to review and say, hey, was this a good observation? We're able to do that now. And the human review, all observations require human review. And that human review can happen now in seconds, less than 10 often, that they can review that evidence, which again saves time and makes it more, more feasible for everyone to really work on enforcement.
The other thing that struck me about your work is so when we talk about law enforcement, enforcement is often another sticking point for people because we're catching these, pass-bys, but not always doing something about it. But you guys are working directly with the law enforcement. I mean, I've seen you exhibiting at law enforcement conferences. So, what's that kind of education awareness piece you're doing with that other, segment that's not directly in our industry, but still so directly affects the work that we do?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, when we talk to our law enforcement partners, they recognize the problem, but they also have many priorities. And so it's how do they, they can't follow every school bus. We've heard that, comment several times. And so again, I think it's understanding what do they need to issue a ticket, and then making sure we have all of that data collected so that when a traffic enforcement officer reviews the evidence packages we present, it can be done as efficiently as possible. And then using, the similar tools, similar process, there's really no question about the authenticity and the validity of the data that's being presented to them. And so that really cuts down on a lot of the issues that we've seen in the past with law enforcement saying, hey, we appreciate that you recorded this, but it doesn't meet our criteria. We've worked with them as well as our school partners to make sure that we're automatically capturing all of that and presenting it so that ticketing becomes and enforcement becomes very easy.
Good to hear. So we've covered a lot of solutions already, but is there anything we haven't talked about yet that you think could be added in as one of these layers to enhance security? Is there maybe something else that we might be overlooking?
Yeah, I mean, as we've kind of gotten better visibility, better data, real-time data, one of the neat things about the platform that we've built is, again, we capture all of that so that our customers, the school districts, law enforcement working together can review that data, and we basically have an analytics platform. And so, we've now captured where these events are happening, at what frequency they're happening, with which bus routes. And we can create heat maps that allow the school districts, the transportation directors, to see, where am I seeing the biggest problems? What time of day? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? Is it both? Is it on a particular roadway? All of that can now be reviewed and analyzed, and we can, use or share that information to make better routing decisions. Or, again, back to the law enforcement partner saying, hey, I can't follow every vehicle. We can now say, we don't need you to follow every vehicle, but we do need you to be at these bus stops at this time of day to work in concert with the automated system to, again, better improve or really reduce, the illegal passing.
That's great. I didn't realize that part too. So, you mentioned some of your work in transit already, but Safely deals in many other verticals. You're also in, military defense and
That's right.
fire. So are there any other safety trends that you're witnessing in these other markets that you think would be helpful for the school bus industry to be aware of? Any lessons we can borrow?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, common, I think, across fleets is every vehicle has blind spots. And so in those blind spots often is where, accidents occur or happen. I didn't see it. I didn't know it was there. And so, again, building upon our video and sensor technology is, how do we eliminate the blind spots around a vehicle? That could be a school bus. It could be a transit bus. It could be a military vehicle, waste and recycling vehicles. They all have blind spots. And so one of the things we've been building now is an actual camera replacement system for mirrors. And so the mirror system will be replaced with a 6 to 8 camera system that eliminates all blind spots around the vehicle. And similar to some of the advanced technology or AI that we're using for stop arm enforcement, we've got that compute capability on the vehicle. And so we can run other analytics like pedestrian detection or object detection in those blind spots to draw attention to the driver so that they don't make a mistake, they don't strike something or someone. So that's really kind of where we're focused next on, just really trying to figure out, how do we eliminate all of those blind spots. Most of the fleets we talk to is usually, backing up or turning, and they just didn't see it.
You just mentioned, AI, and so I want to pivot just a little bit because there is another solution you offer, and that's the AI dash cams or driver monitoring, driver coaching. There's a lot of ways we can refer to it, but that's getting a little bit outside of the illegal passing detection, but still a key component to school bus safety. So how exactly does this work? How can it be more widely adopted? I know there's, some drivers who think, well, I don't want to be spied on.
Yep.
So what's your experience with that?
Yeah, maybe on that last part, I'll start there. We've worked in, a number of spaces where, again, bringing technology, bringing cameras, recording people can be a little bit unnerving. But like in law enforcement, over the last 10 plus years, body worn cameras have been adopted. At first, there was definite, reservations, concerns. But as we've worked with our law enforcement partners, more times than not, they actually see the benefit of, having that camera there. It allows them to recreate everything that's happened. And, despite what we all hear and see, often in the news or media, the vast majority of our law enforcement, officers are doing everything by the book. And many times we've seen where, an unfortunate situation happens, there's a dispute. It's very easy to go back now, play that footage, and really exonerate the officer and prove, that they've done everything that they were supposed to do. And it also ends up being a bit of a deterrent when people realize, hey, we're being recorded. So people tend to behave a little differently. So it really works well in that space. And I know the same is true for dash cams. Again, it's, hey, I don't want everyone to know what I'm doing all the time, but when you're a professional driver, you're paid to do that job. And in our case, how are we going to get students, to and from safely? So, that basic dash cam is a two-in-one camera. It has a forward facing or road facing camera, and then it also has a camera pointed towards the driver. And again, using, edge compute to run different AI models, it can detect different things. So like on the forward facing camera, it can let you know in terms of lane departure, collision, avoidance, or warning. So it gives advanced warning to the driver, or if they happen to be, not looking up, again, it causes them to raise their eyes up and react properly. And then as far as driver facing, there's different ways of masking the driver so that you don't necessarily have to track the individual, but at least you're monitoring the driver so that you can see if they're distracted, if they've got a phone up, if they, I don't think it's as common today to be smoking, but falling asleep for sure, eating. And then a bigger one now is seatbelts. We can detect the seatbelt and make sure that you're really compliant with how you should be operating the vehicle. So it's a super powerful tool that we see, whether it's in school buses, commercial vehicles, even passenger cars. It's a great way, again, to interact and alert the driver of dangerous situations.
But I'm seeing districts using this. So, it's not supposed to be a punishment for things that a driver's doing wrong, but it's coaching to help improve behaviors that might be a safety hazard. And there's also some rewards for good behavior. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I think most know, you want positive reinforcement, and certainly the tools there, if something unfortunate happens, you've captured all of that, and often that's good too. But the way the system's set up, the way ours works, off the device, you can detect harsh braking and acceleration. You can actually integrate with the vehicle itself and understand, what all else is going on with the vehicle. But all of those inputs come back to our cloud platform, and we're able to do scoring. And then basically that scoring, does create a composite that says over time or even down to the individual trip, how did you perform? And so it's an excellent way, as you're working with your teams to try to develop them to be as best as possible, to have now actual evidence where before you'd actually have to go out and do a ride along. And so now you don't have to do that. The technology is there. And so it really is, when we talk about, safety and efficiency, this is one of those solutions that really checks on the box on both.
When you talk about those safety scores,
Mm-hmm.
how exactly are those calculated? And, is it something that a district can configure to their situation, their preferences, or is it kind of this is how the system is set and it's applied across?
Yeah, the attributes that we track definitely are kind of set. They're always updating and evolving. So, that's one of the beautiful things about having a, connected device with software. You can, adapt and evolve it over time. But once we set those attributes, you can set up your system and make adjustments, to the weighting of that scoring. And so you can really tailor the solution for your fleet, for your needs.
Yeah, and I mean, probably too, for certain routes that just look so different than some others that, those parameters maybe make some sense to be shifted about.
That's right. And it is good too, similar to the stop arm discussion. You also can see how scores change by location and time of day and conditions,
Oh, sure.
which then gets you back to how do you, design a better, route, design a better fleet, if you will. So that's I think really the neat part that a lot of people miss is you're gathering all that data so that you can, inform yourself and make better decisions.
Are there any other safety issues or technologies we haven't talked about yet that you think are a key component to this kind of larger picture, or what might be?
Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the video analytics capabilities, whether it's again stop arm violation or dash cameras, some of those basic algorithms, those basic processes can be adapted. So, think about in a school bus, student behavior is important. Our children, seated, properly and where they should be. In some cases, there's fighting. There can be cases of abuse. Detecting all of that is very possible. And so we see that as a huge opportunity. Facial recognition, is a possibility. I think it's important to know who's on the bus. Did everyone get on? Did everyone get off? Make sure no one got off at the wrong stop or heaven forbid, be left on the bus. So we really see that the kind of the expansion of the cameras and then the AI capabilities to really solve a lot of different problems in real time. So it doesn't have to be something that's played back later. This is being done on the vehicle as it happens.
So when we're, get out your crystal ball here for a minute. If you can predict, what do you think might be next on the horizon for school bus safety?
Yeah. I think with the, kind of the end game for illegal passing, the thing that we see is, autonomy or autonomous vehicles are going to continue to drive more and more technology. But the biggest one that probably has excited me for some time is the potential for vehicle to vehicle communications. And so, if the driving public all has cars and they're all communicating with one another, and the school bus is communicating that here I am and I'm stopped and you're not to pass, in an automated way, we have eliminated, you've taken out the human error and the potential to illegally pass. So that one in particular, I'm really excited. I still think that's some ways out, and we all still have a lot of work to do. As I said earlier, it's a persistent problem, so our work won't stop until we get there. But vehicle to vehicle communications, I think, has a lot of promise for solving that problem.
Yeah, that's such a good point too. And before I worked on school bus fleet, did some work with Automotive Fleet and Fleet Forward, our sister brands at media. And, connected vehicle technology was such a huge topic a few years ago. And we do know that school buses are a little behind the trend, and for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that definitely could and probably will be coming. And, speaking of that too, I've been hearing a little more buzz lately about connected stoplight technology. And, so I can't wait to see how this unfolds in the coming years.
Yeah, it's a connected world, that for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, is there, we've talked about a bunch already. If there's one thing you want viewers of this episode to take away, what's that?
Yeah, I think it's that we're all, working tirelessly, to make sure that there's, zero injuries, zero fatalities for student transportation. And it does take the community. We're excited to be a part of that community, working together and using policy, procedure. And in our case, we love to bring technology to solve those problems. And so I think for us, it's just the continuation of that. You're never really done. So it's continuing the good work.
Good work. We appreciate what you do, and thank you for sharing your knowledge with our viewers. If someone's interested in working with you and they're not already, how should they reach out?
Yeah, please reach out to our website, and you can select the certain technology or product and get in touch with our teams, and we'll be glad to work with you.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you again. Technology is advancing so fast. We'll keep following how it evolves and how it's making school buses safer for drivers and students everywhere. We thank Mike again for his expertise on this topic and hope you'll visit the links in the description to learn more. That's it for today, but you can find more school bus headlines and hot topics on our website anytime. Be sure to follow our YouTube channel and connect with us on social media. And a big thank you to our sponsor of the route, ICBus, proudly offering vehicles and solutions that are ahead of its class. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for riding with us.